pretty quick. I see Mr. Rayner's here. And item number 70 is an item that I put on. I put it on at the request of the Human Rights Advisory Board in a letter from Mr. Rayner, who's the chair of the Human Rights Advisory Board. And what the item does is it asks the County Commission to approve a letter that I would send with my signature to Florida Governor Rick Scott, calling on him to enact an executive order to provide protections to all state employees and contractors against discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression. And I believe it is very important. It should be noted that actually this item was meant to be placed on the agenda last week, where we put it on prior to the horrific acts of this weekend. And I believe this item is very important because through my conversations with Mr. Rayner and in the backup material, Florida, unfortunately, isn't always as friendly to the LGBT community as it should be, and that's evidenced by the fact that the Department of Children and Families had recommended changes to the administrative rules to provide protections for the LGBT community, and then the governor's office appears to have struck all of those protections, all that language from the rules. But I was very proud of Jacksonville, and I believe that Commissioner LaMarca mentioned this recently. The Jacksonville mayor, who's the former chair of the Republican Party of Florida, showed great leadership in Jacksonville, and he actually just recently enacted protections for the LGBT community and employees for the city of Jacksonville. And I just believe that our governor and Florida should do that for all state agency employees and others. So with that said, Mr. Rayner, I have you as signed up to speak, and thank you for providing this to us.
Thank you, Mayor. Before you start the clock, let me just thank the mayor and the commissioners who were present this Sunday at the Pride Center for a vigil that was put together literally within hours. And I know, Vice Mayor, you were trying to make it as well as Commissioner LaMarca and Commissioner Furr. I don't believe you had heard about it by that time. But I just want to thank you for your time there as we spent together in a multi-faith, very diverse Broward County, over 600 people assembled, and we joined with the Muslim community and the gay community, the Jewish community, and others to show that Broward County is bigger than that, and no terrorist and no act of hate will tear a community apart and play on our differences for us to turn on one another. And I just want to thank you for the leadership that this commission continues to show in these horrific times and in good times as well.
And Mike, it's also important to thank you as well, because that was organized from the morning until just a few hours later on, and you played a very large part in its organization. It was incredible. It was very moving, and you did a great job.
It's never easy to tell elected officials that you don't have microphone time. So,
we like microphones. You know.
On this item, speaking as the chair of the county's Human Rights Board, we have continued our conversations in looking at the recommendation. Had some discussions relating to a travel ban in North Carolina. Other matters have come up prior to that time where we see on the federal level President Obama enacted executive order to provide the similar protections that Mayor Lenny Curry in Jacksonville had also enacted. Recently in Congress and the House, there was a tussle over trying to strip away those protections from the executive order, and thankfully they right now remain intact. We do encourage that this be done. You know, Broward residents are also state employees, and it sends the message that needs to be. I also need to, I'm going to speak as an individual and as a gay man who has the privilege to serve as chair of that board, of the Human Rights Board, but I need to speak authentically as a gay man. And I need to share that this week's horrific attacks, we have heard words from the governor. What we haven't heard are words that dignified the lives of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender individuals who were slaughtered in a massacre in a nightclub. They were targeted for their identity. Had this been a black church that was shot up, we would be hearing about the African American community. Had this been a synagogue, we'd be hearing about the Jewish community. In fact, the governor has just recently was in Broward County for the Holocaust signing for the memorial that will be in Tallahassee. Never once could talk about the LGBT people who were tortured and murdered as part of the Holocaust. We continue to be invisible in this state. As you look in the documents that have been provided this morning as part of Agenda Item 70, you'll see the markup of the pending rule from the DCF that DCF itself was supportive of enacting protections for LGBT youth, including not allowing foster parents to force conversion on the children. You know, in the beginning of this school year, I heard of a story of a Pentecostal family who sent their child, their daughter specifically, when they found out she was a lesbian, gave her a bottle of aspirin and said, "Go to your bedroom and don't come out until they're finished." This is here in Broward County. You know, we've been left invisible in this state, and it's time to pull off that cloak of invisibility that we struggle under. And I know this commission's philosophy and beliefs. I know I'm not trying to political grandstand on anything here. This is just the right thing to do. And I just ask that you include this as part of the letter. You expand the legislative agenda as well to reflect such provisions. There'll be others that will come probably through the Human Rights Board. I ask you to give us any direction of matters that you would like us to consider over the summer, so for after recess additionally that we would have for you. But I think this is sound policy. It's based on sound reason. It's not partisan politics or anything else, but it speaks for the people during a heinous time to really make sure that we stand up for all people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Commissioner LaMarca.
Michael is a former neighbor of mine, and used to see him more often other than in these meetings in the northeast part of the county. And I can tell you that he did call me on Sunday as I was going through emails and social media and checking in with anybody that I knew in the Orlando area and whatnot. So your efforts are very visible by all of us here and in our community. I would say two things. Number one, you mentioned Mayor Curry. I was the former chair of the Broward County Republican Party, and we met in a room slightly bigger than a phone booth. But and I got to know Lenny pretty well. I would consider him a very conservative Republican, but I would also consider him a pragmatist and a realist. And as the mayor of Jacksonville, he realized he serves all the people. I know that a couple of years ago, I was myself and one other elected official at the county level. It was a school board member, and we marched in the Pride Parade. And I recall the negativity wasn't from your community. It wasn't from the other side of the aisle. For me, it was from my side of the aisle. I guess I would say just with regard to that, just in registration only. I don't share any values or principles with folks like that. But I appreciate you including Mayor Curry's letter. I would caution you slightly on one thing, and that's that I don't think you're invisible. I think Broward County realizes 1.5 million visitors in our tourism industry with a very welcome and open LGBT tourism effort from the CVB, from Nikki, and I'm sure Stacy will continue that on. It's a very big part of our community. I think people need to realize, at least from our perspective, being in this position, I will just say for myself, I can't speak for anyone else, that in life you have values and beliefs that maybe you were brought up with, you're taught, you're preached to in your church or synagogue. And I would say that the smart people or the people that would be in a position where they're going to get all the right information by taking it in from everybody, separate certain personal beliefs or personal ways of life with what they do when they serve our community. And prior to redistricting, I served the entire city of Wilton Manors. I still serve half the city of Oakland Park, about a third or 25-30% of the city of Fort Lauderdale. I mentioned those cities because that's probably, behind Wilton Manors, that's probably the highest gay population in Broward County. And I count folks that have gone through these struggles as close personal friends, family members. So what I would tell you is that I can't speak on behalf of the governor, in any way. I was very happy to see the efforts that were made from the governor's office in Orlando. But I tried to go online and figure out how I could show you that you're wrong, but I can't. There is a very strong heart and concern with what happened there, but I don't see those words mentioned here. I also don't think that was only what that was about, but I will support this. I'll co-sponsor it, whatever I can do to make sure that Tallahassee and the governor's office understands that, look, in government, your employees are your employees. And as Commissioner First said earlier, when we say the Pledge of Allegiance, it's not, well, this is for these groups but not that group, or this religion and not that religion. It's the mentality of the 9/12 that will get this country through and this community through things like this. But I support this issue, and as you know, that I have two very extremely good people on your board. I won't mention their names because of what I'm going to say is one's on one side of the political spectrum, the other one's on the other. And when you bring items to us, they're usually, I think almost always, unanimous. And I would say a conservative banker who I have on there talks to me all the time about the issues and the things you're moving forward are things that are right for humanity, not for any one group of people. So I'm in support, and keep doing what you're doing, but try to get some rest.
Thank you, Commissioner. If I may, 1 second, Mayor. I've been up every day at 6 a.m. helping behind the scenes logistically for some of the victims' families today. I'm very proud that both a Republican and Democrat member of Congress have been stepping forward and helping immigration issues so that families can come to the United States to claim the bodies of their children. And it's above politics, but unfortunately in this state, we have suffered a horrible blowback when we tried to. Last year was the bathroom amendment where we were vilified. This year, the competitive workforce was trumped so that we could have Pastors Protection Act, but yet the LGBT community and non-discrimination protections were continually put on a back burner, unfortunately because of leadership in Tallahassee. So I appreciate your words and your remarks because I know you to be true in those from our years of knowing one another.
I just want to add one more thing, Mayor. In watching some of the coverage yesterday, it was highlighted that through all the immigration issues to get people from a lot of folks from Puerto Rico to Orlando, one of our biggest airline partner at FLL, JetBlue, has been covering airfare for all these folks who are coming to see their family members. So that was a pretty good customer we have there.
Commissioner Holness.
Thank you. Indeed, we must have full human rights and protection for all people. It's a fundamental, I think, for us as humanity as we exist together. And you're right, a governor needs to take a stand to ensure that he represents all the people, not some, and that all people are protected. I was there with you in the diversity of Broward County at the Pride Center on Sunday evening. The diversity included Jews, Muslims, Hispanics, blacks. The whole community was there. And it really symbolizes where we ought to be as a people, as a community. There was sympathies and a great outpouring of love that I experienced and witnessed there. Our gay or LGBT community deserve to be treated with respect and dignity as any other human ought to be. So I support you, Mayor, on this item.
Thank you.
And we'll make the motion or second it as we go forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Holness. Commissioner Bogan.
Yeah, no, I also support this and wanted to let you know, Michael, I wish I could have joined. I was out of the country at the time, but I would have joined if I was here, and I support anything I can do to help.
But you did send Matt on your behalf.
Yeah.
As well, so you were well represented.
Okay.
Absolutely. And Commissioner Ryan.
After the horrific mass murder in Orlando, the evidence came out soon afterwards that Omar Mateen had a deep hatred for those persons in the LGBT community. He also had a very deep hatred of black persons, and he also had, he just had a pattern of battering his spouse. It's no coincidence that all three of those roll together. So this is a good effort. Government, if government does anything, it should protect persons based upon sexual orientation and gender identity. So I'm in support.
Thank you. And I really appreciate everyone's comments. And thank you again, Mr. Rayner. You truly are a wonderful individual. You dedicate so much of your time to doing what's right and what's good. And, I love watching what you're doing on Facebook as well. And not only do I love learning about Gidget, but I love watching you go all around the country, making a difference and fighting for people and giving folks a voice. Oh, sorry, Gidget's his dog for everybody out there. We all love Gidget. She's the lizard slayer. She she goes after lizards. But thank you very much, Mike, for all you do and for your leadership. We're very, very, very blessed to have you in our county and also as the chair of the Human Rights Advisory Board. And so with that said, thank you.
Send a letter to Governor Scott calling him to enact an executive order to provide protection for all state employees and contractors against discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression.
Thank you. There's been a motion. Is there a second?
The DCF provision, Mayor, do you want to include that? I'm sorry to
If
just
that would be,
interject
if it's okay, Commissioner Holness, could you amend it?
Add in the DCF provision, yes.
Great. There's been a motion and a second. And a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Show it passes unanimously, and I will get this out as soon as possible. Thank you very much.